Hello and welcome. I'm James Ezimoha. You're watching African News. Let's see your headlines. The U.S. deportation program faces backlash after a Cambodian refugee was sent to Eswatini and placed in a maximum security prison. Hospitals in eastern Congo struggle to contain the Ebola outbreak as suspected cases continue to rise. And widespread blackouts disrupt life in Mali after attacks on key energy infrastructure. Now, a Cambodian refugee deported from the United States to Eswatini says he feared for his life after authorities flew him to the Southern African Kingdom and locked him inside a maximum security prison.
Eswatini, a small landlocked country in southern Africa, became part of a US deportation program that sent migrants to countries other than their own under special agreements. One of the deportees, Cambodian refugee Peep Rom, spoke about the journey and the conditions he faced after being sent from Louisiana to Eswatini through South Africa.
It was rough. When I went to Africa, it was rough. When I first, like being shackled for 21 hours, from when we landed there, we thought we was gonna get killed. I thought that I was gonna get killed.
After landing, authorities transferred Rom to a maximum security prison, even though he was not accused of committing a crime in Eswatini.
And they threw me in a prison when I got there. When I got there, they put me in a super maximum prison, and that right there, I feel as though that's illegal to put somebody in a prison and you haven't committed any crime in that country.
Lawyers challenging the deportation deal say the migrants were held without proper legal process.
Everything must follow due process, and you expect America to know that as a first world country and as a country that has demonstrated or postures themselves as a beacon of democracy and protection of civil rights and liberties. We'll expect them to know that if a person has finished their sentence and you don't desire them in your own territory, there are diplomatic processes or channels that you can follow. You touch base with their embassy and then you say you want to deport them back to their country. But America doesn't want to do that.
Eswatini's government has not publicly detailed the full terms of its agreement with Washington. Legal challenges against the deportation arrangement are continuing in the country's courts.
Now in Liberia, young entrepreneurs are finding new ways to build businesses without traditional shops or formal online systems. From viral videos to direct payments, social media is becoming a marketplace of its own. Here's more.
A new generation of young entrepreneurs in Liberia is turning social media platforms into digital marketplaces using TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook to build businesses and reach customers across West Africa. In the capital, Monrovia, business content creator Ishmael Kamara is among the online sellers bypassing traditional retail models by promoting products through viral videos, live streams, and direct messaging, despite limited access to global monetization systems and online payment services.
Well, I saw many people sell online, like in China, America, UK, all around the world, even in Guinea itself. Sell in Sierra Leone, I see many people sell online, and people can buy. So we just sit down, we say we should create our own thing, and we should be agile together to say, yeah, for customers to buy from us.
Unable to access many of the integrated payment and monetization tools available in larger markets, Liberian creators developed informal systems based on direct bank transfers, mobile communication, and personal trust. Kamara said his business now serves customers not only in Liberia, but also in neighboring Guinea.
I'm still a young guy, but I manage the money myself. I buy the goods, load them into a car, and send them to customers.
The growing social commerce trend is also helping to reshape consumer habits in a country where formal retail and online shopping infrastructure remain limited. Customer Mariama Kroma said social media videos encouraged her to trust online sellers for the first time. She added that her purchases had arrived without problems.
The first time I watched their videos online, it encouraged me to take the risk and transfer money to them.
According to World Bank data, formal wage employment accounts for only a small share of Liberia's workforce. As a result, many young people are turning to digital entrepreneurship as an alternative source of income. Liberian authorities and civil society groups have also launched training initiatives aimed at helping young entrepreneurs develop digital business skills and expand the country's growing online retail sector.
Now to the Democratic Republic of Congo, where hospitals are struggling to contain a growing Ebola outbreak, with medical workers facing shortages of space, medicine, and protective equipment as suspected cases continue to rise in Ituri province.
Hospitals in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo are struggling to cope as the country battles its latest Ebola outbreak, with hundreds of suspected infections and dozens of deaths reported so far. In Ituri province, medical workers are running out of space, medicine, and protective equipment as new patients continue arriving each day. At Ruampara General Hospital, tents have been set up outside to isolate patients as health workers try to prevent the virus from spreading further.
Although we keep receiving cases, we don't have enough space to admit and hospitalize them. We have set up a tent right here already, and perhaps we will need another one to try to isolate patients in the immediate future. There aren't enough medications, protective equipment, or even staff. We will also need support to try and increase the number of staff who can actually take care of these patients.
But concerns are also growing beyond hospitals. At the University of Bunia, students say there are still no proper preventive measures in place.
We don't have sinks to wash hands. We haven't even heard the university requires students to wear masks or put other basic precautions in place. This is truly terrible, and it really puts students at risk of catching the virus.
Authorities say the lack of a specific vaccine or treatment for this Ebola strain is adding to the challenge.
Now, climate challenge is rapidly reshaping migration patterns across West and Central Africa. Floods, desertification, and extreme weather events have already forced millions of people to leave their homes. At an international conference in Lagos, experts and regional leaders warned that without urgent action, climate-driven displacement across the region could rise sharply in the coming decades.
From shrinking farmlands in the Sahel to coastal erosion along the Gulf of Guinea, climate change is increasingly forcing communities across West and Central Africa to move in search of survival. At this regional conference on migration and climate action hosted by the International Organization for Migration in Lagos, the experts who addressed the gathering say climate mobility is no longer a future concern, but a growing reality already reshaping economies, livelihoods, and development planning across the continent.
And today, more than 2 million people in the region have already been displaced by disasters. 2 million. But beyond the numbers, we must not lose sight of what they represent. Because behind these figures, there are individuals, there are communities, and there are local authorities increasingly struggling to cope, often with limited support and few alternatives. And these trends are accelerating. So without more inclusive and effective climate action, up to 32 million people in West and Central Africa could be compelled to move internally by 2050.
We must scale up climate finance. We must invest in resilient infrastructure. We must support livelihood, strengthen urban systems, and deepen regional cooperation. Without all of this, policy commitment risk remains an aspiration.
Climate finance has been a big talking point on the global stage, especially at the last UN Climate Change Conference at Belém in Brazil. Beyond making a strong case for climate finance, speakers here called for serious investment in climate mobility.
Climate mobility cannot remain and should not remain peripheral to climate and development finance. It has to be understood as a core investment issue, an issue that affects how we plan our cities, how we invest in territories under pressure, and how we support livelihoods and resilience in a changing climate. This is the transition that we need to make.
On his part, the European Union says sustainable climate mobility projects must go beyond infrastructure announcements and demonstrate long-term economic viability, institutional accountability, and measurable impact for affected communities.
We, as European Union, we see a deep need to see proper investment projects and plans, with the investors taking responsibility for the management of public goods for the long term. Whether this is a dam, whether this is a coastal area, whether this is agriculture, agroforestry that needs to be developed because of the certification concerns. If there is no economic case for that expenditure, we cannot talk of investment.
Discussions at the conference also focused on the role of data, technology, and early warning systems in responding to climate mobility. As climate shocks intensify across West and Central Africa, experts say the real test for governments will be their ability to move beyond declarations and mobilize the financing, infrastructure, and regional coordination needed to manage climate mobility sustainably. For many at the conference, the challenge is no longer whether climate-driven migration will increase, but whether the region is prepared for its consequences.
Now, strikes on Mali's energy infrastructure have triggered widespread blackouts in the capital. As businesses and households turn to costly alternatives, authorities promise to secure the facilities.
Bamako is grappling with widespread electricity cuts after attacks on critical energy infrastructure claimed by the Group for the Support of Islam and Muslims, known as JNIM. The outages, lasting between 24 and 48 hours in recent days, follow strikes on facilities connected to the Manantali hydroelectric dam in western Mali's Kayes region, one of the country's main power sources for the capital. Households and businesses are being forced to rely on generators and solar power as repeated blackouts disrupt daily life and economic activity.
The electricity cuts are affecting us greatly. In recent days, we can spend 24 hours without electricity. Especially when you don't have solar panels, it becomes very difficult with products that need refrigeration like milk, yogurt and others, because they spoil easily when the refrigerator stops working. These days are very difficult for us.
Internet cafes and digital service providers are also struggling to stay operational as unstable electricity disrupts communications and online services.
For us, the solution came through solar panels. At the beginning of the crisis, we thought the situation was temporary, so we tried using generators. We first used an 8 kVA generator from 9 AM to 10 PM, but because of the long hours and heavy load, it broke down. We bought a second generator, and it also stopped working after only 3 months. It was after purchasing a third generator that I started considering solar panels seriously.
Solar equipment vendors say demand has risen sharply, but prices are also climbing. Some believe insecurity and wider global conflicts are driving up import costs, with most goods transiting through Dakar in Senegal before reaching Mali, adding pressure to already strained supplies. The Malian army says operations against armed groups are continuing in several regions to secure transport corridors and protect strategic infrastructure. Authorities have also pledged efforts to stabilize electricity supply and repair damaged installations.
All right, that's all we have today on Africa News. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to AnewZ.